The greatest work of the church after introducing people to who God is to introduce them to who God made them to be. This month, we teach our kids the value of individuality, which means discovering who you were meant to be so you can make a difference. When God created man, his intention was to create people that were like him. People that were kind and faithful and courageous and bold and generous and prudent. And there are so many characteristics about who God is, way too many for one person to have. Which is why in Genesis 1, God said, let us make man in our image. Not one man or every man, but let us make man. Let us make all of humanity in our image. So God's many characteristics have been deposited throughout all of humanity, which is why individuality is so important. Discovering how God made us empowers us to do and be all he's purposed us for. Bottom line for this week is, you were made in God's image. I have two announcements for you before we jump into small group activities. And the first one is we have new name tags, and they're in the same spot they've always been, but this time around you will write your own name in there using a Sharpie marker, and it will be yours forever. My only request is that you please write legibly. We love the uniqueness of your handwriting, but please let us be able to read it first. If you can't write it in such a way, have somebody else help you out. But please pick one up, put your name on it, and then after service, put it back in the backstage area. The second announcement is we are going back to the team assignment board, which is also found in the backstage area. It looks like this. And we've expanded it to include 3 services. And so each person will have an assigned area that I'd like you to be in. And we will move it around. We will try to place you where you like to be. And if there's one spot you really just love and have a passion for, we can look at keeping you there. But please, each Sunday, go back there as you pick up your name tag, check out the team assignment board, find out where you're assigned that Sunday. This gives me a chance to know every area is covered, and it also gives you a chance to kind of make your rounds, to hang out at the Xbox, to hang out at the Legos, to hang out outside of the playground, because different kids hang out in those places. There are a set of kids that only stays at the art table. There's a group of kids that only play outside. And I want you guys to get to know all of them. I want them to get to know all of you. So please check out the team assignment board. That's going to be very important in the upcoming future. So name tags, team assignment board, check it out this Sunday in the backstage area. And now, on to the small group activities. And as we do that, let us remember everything we learned from Miss Barbara, because we as a team need to pick up where she left off. So as we get ready for this new month, let's make sure we're praying for God to show up. Let's make sure that we're showing up with hope, that we're joyfully expecting God to do something in our midst. And let's make sure we're preparing so that we're ready when God shows up. And then go beyond Sunday. Pass out those parent cues. Connect with the parents. Look for testimonies. Those testimonies will fuel your faith for what happens next Sunday. All are very important. So the first activity is mirror string painting, and this is a Bible story review. And what you need is each kid's going to have their own piece of cardstock, their own string, and a few globs of paint. Allow me to illustrate. And this is what it's going to look like. You're going to make sure every kid has one piece of cardstock, one piece of string. I added a couple things as well, one bowl, one knife, and some gloves. And this is what you'll do. You'll have the kids take their page and fold it in half. And have them open it up so they can see the crease down the middle. And then you'll have them choose one of the 3 colors. These are the 3 colors mainly most groups will have. They can pick 1 or 2 colors if they like. Then you as a leader put a drop or a glob into the bowl. Now, a little bit goes a long way. I'm gonna do orange and red. Don't put them together, put them separate. And then you'll have them glove up. Then have them take the string and make sure it gets all the way into the paint. You want the whole string covered in paint. This is where the knife comes in. It's not the easiest thing, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this and make the knife, kind of push it in, kind of mixing the paint up a little bit. But ideally you want the entire string covered, but not dripping with color. Next, you'll take the string out using the knife, and then you will place it on the page, one side of the crease. And they can make whatever design they want. They can spell a letter out or just do something fun like I'm doing. And obviously I'm just making this up as I go. And then they take the page and they fold it over and they press down. And then they open it up. And they have a mirror reflection of what their string made. And then simply use the knife, scoop up the string one last time, put it back in the bowl, put the knife in the bowl, deglove, into the bowl, into the bowl. This goes in the garbage. This gets taken home. Have the kids write their names on it somewhere, and then follow it up with a discussion. What you can discuss with them is the Bible story that we just talked about, how we were made in God's image. We were made to reflect who God is. Just like in our string art. When we placed our string on one side and folded our paper over and opened it back up, we created a mirror image. When somebody sees this side, they know what's on that side. And we were made in the same way. We were made to reflect, be a mirror image of who God is. Now, to help our kids understand what it means to reflect God's image, ask them a question. When was the last time you saw somebody reflect God's characteristics? And if they have a hard time thinking about that, remind them of the time somebody showed them patience. Or when somebody loved them when they didn't really deserve being loved, when they received mercy instead of a consequence. When they see other people doing these things, they're seeing God's image shining through, because God is love. He's patient, He's kind, He's compassionate, He's full of mercy. And when people reflect God's image, it shows people God is real. It shows people who God is. So ask around the room, when was the last time you saw somebody else show one of God's characteristics? And that's what it looks like to reflect God's image. And you could wrap up the activity by telling them a personal story of when you realized that something inside of you, a strength or a talent, that moment you realized that was from God. Or when you realize how you can use the strength or talent that God gave you to reflect God's image, to reflect God's character, how you can use those gifts or talents to help people out, to show people kindness, to show people love, to point people back to God. And then finish the activity with a reminder of the bottom line, which is you were made in God's image. Now, this activity is full of details, full of potential messy situations. So I would recommend, as a leader, before you pass out all the paint, all the materials, you have the materials in front of you and you do like an example. Not walk through the whole thing step by step, but simply have the paper, the string, and the paint, and the bowl all in front of you and walk them through. This is what I'm going to do. Each person's going to get a piece of cardstock. I'm going to give you a piece of string, and then I'm going to put some paint in your bowl, and then you're going to use this knife, and you're going to push the string in, and then you're going to take the string, you're going to lay it out on this piece of paper, and then you're going to fold it in half. Just so they have a general idea of all the steps that are going to happen. Also, this paint's probably going to be wet, so if it's wet, I would keep it till next week. Make sure everybody puts their name on it though, so that they know whose is theirs. The next activity is called Dough Playground, and you're going to need the Dough Playground activity pages, which looks like this. It's a picture of a slide, a swing set, monkey bars, seesaw, merry-go-round, and I don't know what that is. But this is going to be cut up, and it's going to be in a few different containers in your room. And you're going to spread these containers around the room with all these in there. It's going to be about 40 or 50 of these cut up. And each kid is going to go to a bucket and pick one or two of these cut up pieces of paper and bring it back to the table. And then they will try to recreate what's on the picture by using some Play-Doh and some pipe cleaners. The kids will be able to pick which building material they want to use, whether it's pipe cleaners or Play-Doh, and then they will do their best to recreate what is on their picture. Now, this type of activity, it's great to walk around and talk individually with the kids as they're creating. Encourage them, hey, that's looking really good, or just have some fun with them, like, what is going on over here? But crafts are great because it gives you a chance as a leader to connect at a different level, maybe even go a little bit deeper in getting to know the kids. The kids are gonna really appreciate you coming to them and talking to them and saying good things about what they're creating. They won't forget that. But then as it begins to wrap up, in your binder are some questions that you will use to ask the group to help them remember the Bible story and how it pertains to them. These are the questions. Does your playground look exactly like the picture? Does it reflect it, or does it look similar to the picture? And then we connect it back to the story. Can we be exactly like God? Why or why not? What are some ways that we can reflect or look similar to God? And then you invite the responses on that question. And these questions help them connect the dots, because our kids are concrete thinkers. It's hard for them to understand how we're to reflect a God who we can't see. But this is a way to connect those dots by giving them a chance to recreate something from the Doe Playground pages and it not look exactly the same, because we don't look exactly the same, but there are some similarities. There are some things that we as humans can do to reflect or act similarly to God. And a great way to wrap up this activity is to ask them one question. Ask them, what is one characteristic of God that you would like to reflect this week? And get some responses and write them down. And remember to ask them next week how they did at reflecting that characteristic. Final activity, of course, is pray and dismiss, and you'll need the string art from earlier. And basically, you're going to just pray that we would be able to reflect God's image this week. Now, this is a kind of deep topic for our kids, so we're gonna spend some time building up this idea that we are made to reflect God's image, and we need to pray. We need God's help for our kids to grasp this. So pray for a spirit of wisdom and revelation to come upon our kids, that they would know God. And when they know God, they would know His words, and they would know His ways, and they would understand what it means to be made in God's image.